So you and I have spoken about this one before.
Yes.
And I very vaguely remember what you told me, but I remember it made so much sense. And one of the things you told me was it made so much sense as to why this plant was so abundant. Its spiritual property made so much sense.
Right.
As to why it was so abundant. And it's dandelion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, Susie, you had asked us to do something on weeds. So this is the first, a friend of mine had said, will you please talk about the spiritual properties of some weeds? So I'm glad you asked this.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I think dandelions pop to mind when people think about weeds.
For sure. It's in your lawn. It's like, it seems like a pain because you just want your perfect green lawn.
Of course, I get it.
Yeah.
So like these like would be otherwise beautiful little flowers are completely people just really get
and they really take over. You don't just have
they
one.
Can.
There's 100.
I totally get it. So
shame.
I like my lawn to be nice and
manicured. Totally.
Okay, so dandelions, you might giggle when you hear about this. Dandelions are about abundance.
Yes, that was what it was.
Which is why they grow in such abundance. But they're also really about, I'm just seeing if there's anything else that I have that sort of expands on it. Yes, so they're about creating abundance, but they also, on the emotional level, help to reduce bitterness. And it's fascinating because
Which is interesting because they're all over your yard and they're asking you to not be bitter.
But they are super bitter. Like if anyone's had dandelion greens in like a salad or something like that, you know they're like so bitter, which can be excellent for like your digestive system and for promoting, you know, it's super healthy for your gallbladder and all of that kind of thing. And dandelion root has, again, wonderful nutritional properties. And the clinical herbalists out there can, I'm sure, wax poetic about the physical properties of dandelion. But it's interesting because I was taught that the energy of bitterness can diffuse the energy of abundance.
Okay.
So in other words, is like you can't have abundance around something you're bitter about.
Yep.
So interesting, right? And
that kind of feels like a little bit common sense though. Like you're not going to get a good result from anything that you're mad about and you're bitter.
Yeah. So if you've got lots of dandelions in your world, you could be calling in lots of abundance. Good for you. Or they could be this perfect little antidote for bitterness in some aspect of life. You know, up to you to interpret that.
Yeah.
But I think how wonderful that like the first plants that come up in the spring as we come into a season of abundance are usually dandelions. So they're coming in to sort of like clear the path in a way for that greater abundance of spring and summer and then leading into fall.
Perfect.
So that's not to say you have to love them and like grow them in your yard, but maybe gives you a different appreciation for these pretty little flowers.
And so they're so abundant in the spring. So I would imagine that a lot of the people that are watching this video will have a really easy, you know, time getting a hold of them. What would you do with them? How would you bring that into your life? Besides admiring them. Well, just, you know, how do you integrate them, you know, for their spiritual and emotional gifts? Is it let them grow in your yard?
I mean, if you're looking for the physical, you can buy the dandelion root. Lots of people use it as like a coffee substitute. Yeah. You can buy the dried leaves, which I would suggest if you're going to take them for as a physical supplement, that you buy them from a clinical herbalist, just because they're going to be grown. They're going to come from an organic source and that type of thing. But on the emotional and spiritual level, and we always talk about this for the plants on the emotional, energetic, and spiritual levels, the portion of the plant, the way it's harvested, and the way it's prepared is super important for harnessing those specific aspects. And that can be completely different than if you're processing the plant for physical use. So dandelion's a good example. Physical level, you're looking at leaf, you're looking at root, but on the energetic and spiritual level, you're actually looking at the seedling. So the pretty like puffy bit. So people might tincture that, they might make a glycerate out of that, and so you can use it from there.
Okay.
So that's the part that you'd be using if you're after the properties on those levels.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that.